George and Susan are driving home from a party they attended that night at a friend's house where they did some pretty irresponsible things. A keg stand, for one. While driving intoxicated, suddenly thunder struck and a torrential downpour began to scatter the highway with water. George swerved into oncoming traffic in his intoxicated state and narrowly missed disaster, but the torrential rain sent his car into a tailspin. The car skid off the road, slid down a hill, and came to a rest in a swamp in the nearby wooded area. "Honey, what happened?" "Stay in the car, honey. I'm going to see how bad it is," as George opened the door, got out, and made his way around the front to assess the damage. "Well, it doesn't look too bad. There's no major damage, but I am in this massive puddle, and I think I'm going to have to go for help." As he thought out loud, he heard a crackling in the distance that sounded like a footstep. Reports of a Truckee River killer were all over the news as of late, and he had as recently as 2 days ago killed again. "Honey, I'm gonna go for help. When I leave, I want you to lock the doors and keep the lights in the car and the headlights off." She didn't want to leave, but she was too drunk to move. She could barely walk. She was so intoxicated. So she watched her husband close the door and disappear into the distance. All of a sudden, she heard a scream. All of a sudden, Susan's heart began to race, and she was faced with an overwhelming feeling that she was all alone in this forest with the Truckee River killer. Susan climbed out of the window of the car because the door was stuck closed in the mud and began to run in the direction she thought the highway was. A light appeared in the distance, and Susan assumed that it was at least a car or a police officer, so she ran towards it. As she approached, she was horrified by what she saw. Her husband's body was hanging from a tree. His throat had been cut so deeply that he was almost decapitated. Susan turned around in an attempt to run the other way, but as soon as she did a 180, she ran into... "Sweetie, you drive hammered, you're gonna get nailed."